Hey guys, welcome to Monday night's episode of Relax, This Is Gonna Suck. Gonna give it a minute for Shakti to hop on before we share this out. Get my rocker in place. And wait for you guys to hop on. Try not to spill water on myself. Here she is. Hey.
Hey. Okay. So a few things. I'm pretty sure I sprained my finger.
Oh.
So if my hand looks weird, that would be why as I'm talking. I have no idea how I did that, but it is swollen and hurts like a bitch.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah. Also, I will be folding clothes because I'm a grown-up and I have responsibilities. So.
Girl, today was one of those days where I was like so productive as far as like making phone calls and just all that little shit, all those little things on your list where you're like, I have to get that shit done, like folding clothes, right? And yet I'm like, I did way more today and yet I somehow feel less productive. Like, how does that shit work? I would like did everything on my list except for maybe like one or two small things, like, but I'm just like, I don't know.
Because your mind is a bitch, that's why.
Yeah. Ego's like, you didn't do enough. I'm like, fuck you. Do you know how productive I was today?
I stopped working, like, doing follow-ups and stuff, like, maybe a few minutes ago. So I was like, I don't have time to fold clothes, so I'm just going to do that while we talk. Yeah. Because, wow.
Exactly. I just got done eating. So, because I like to be done before 6 or by 6:30 at least.
I forget. Times are so different. I'm like, you just ate, girl. It's like 9.
I know. There's a reason that I have such good lighting right now because I still have the natural light and the lamp. I'm like, I'm winning at life on the West Coast.
All right, let me share out our video, which I have not done yet. If you're hopping on, please say hi. I covered the comments, so I didn't even see them.
Okay. Amy's here.
Please say hey, Mick. Thanks for hopping on. Hi, Steph.
We are also starting something new tonight that we're fucking pumped about. So,
yes,
if you guys share this video out, we are going to each choose a name from those of you who shared, and you will get something. Shakti's going to do a mini reading, and I'm going to do a mindset call. So it's only for people who share the video out, and you have to be on live because we're going to pick it, beforehand. So, not beforehand. You know what I'm saying? We're going to pick it before the people watching the replay will watch the replay is what I'm trying to say.
While the video is out.
Right. Live. Live, basically, is what we're trying to say.
So say hi, let us know that you're here, share it out, and get in the drawing for your mini reading or your mindset call. We'll each be picking one person. So there's going to be 2 opportunities to win. And we're just sharing this out. I can't type because I sprained my finger. I'm a therapist. I'm like, this is great. This is great. Let's do that. Okay. Sharing that. And
Hello to everyone hopping on. If you're just now hopping on, share this out. If you share it out while we are live, we're going to each choose a name from the shared list. Shakti's going to do a mini reading, and I'm going to do a mindset call. So there's 2 chances to win.
You want to do the thing, y'all. You want to do the thing. We're just finishing sharing this out, making sure that all of our spaces have access to the content, and then we're going to rock and roll. honestly no idea what I'm going to say about this topic. I just gonna be real honest. Like, I have so much to say, I don't even know what to say. You know, I just feel like this whole topic of being resourceful is like my life. It's the reason I'm not dead. Like, it's literally the reason I haven't died, and the reason why I'm not bankrupt, and the reason why like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the reason I didn't end up medicated after I had my son and all this stuff is because I've been so resourceful. And that's such like an integral part of my identity that I'm like, what do I even talk about? Like, how do I even break this down? Like, how are you not resourceful? Right. That's sort of like where my mind is. So I'm like having a difficult time even reframing this. So I'm definitely going to let you introduce this topic, and then I will just insert random bits of comedic relief throughout the conversation.
Okay. So I agree with you on the fact that I'm at the same place. I mean, there's a reason we're fucking friends and business partners because
no, you really
because we're so alike, obviously, in so many ways. But it's like, you know, when Shakti's like, I don't even know what to say about this because it's such a part of who I am. It's kind of like if someone were like, so how did you learn how to walk? Like, well, I mean, like, fuck, I don't, you know, or like, or even just like, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? You know, when you have like any of those how-to, like, did you guys ever take speech class and you just do like a how-to speech and you end up like missing a step, right? Because it's like, it's so, like, you just don't have to think about how to make a fucking peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So this topic came up though, because I've been listening to a lot of Gary Vee lately.
I like how we preface our videos with, I've been listening to blank lately, so everything coming out of my mouth is going to be tainted.
I had to warn clients today. I was like, FYI, I've been listening to a lot of Gary Vee, so just letting you know. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm just giving you a heads up. So I've been listening to a lot of Gary Vee lately, and I've been kind of I've gone through phases throughout my coaching career and my personal development journey as far as who I listen to and what I need and all of that. And I've been listening to a lot of Gary Vee because he's so honest, first of all, right? And he's very much cut the shit, which is how I coach. It's very much, I mean, again, why Shakti and I work the way that we do. We have compassion and we're very much just cut the shit. And so we both talk to many people on a regular basis who struggle with fill in the blank, struggle with money, struggle with health, struggle with relationships, struggle with whatever, struggle with facing fear,
meditation,
anything. Like, I don't know how to fill in the blank. And what keeps sticking out every time I listen to Gary is that he says, if you have a smartphone and or access to the internet, which if you're watching us right now, you do, there's no fucking reason to sit there and say, I'm broke. I can't, whatever. Like, whatever your excuse is invalid. It's invalid.
I don't know how to
anything.
I don't know
anything. Any excuse you have is invalid. And what came up for me when he said that, and like really just reflecting on my own life, and of course, Shakti and I have a bajillion examples in our personal lives of how we've been resourceful and how we've overcome things that most people would give up on. But the most recent example was in the midst of my financial decline, my financial black hole, if you will, where I was on the verge of going into a really deep depression in January. But 2 months before that was really the precursor to that, where I started to experience doubt, I started to experience fear, and I started to experience more anxiety than I had in a while. And it was because of spiraling into that, which then brought me into my financial black hole. But I had this desire to start a podcast. I had been wanting to podcast for I don't even know how long, right? I was like, I really enjoy talking. I have a message. I have people who want to hear what I have to say. And so it makes total sense for me to have a podcast. And it's just something I wanted a podcast. I wanted that to be part of my business, right? I wanted to reach more people. One of my core values is impact. I wanted to impact. So I wanted to start a podcast, but guess who doesn't know how to start a fucking podcast? This chick didn't. I didn't know how to start a podcast, right? But I was like, I bet Google knows how to start a podcast. So I Googled, how do you start a podcast? what do you need to start a podcast? And I just started, I watched YouTube videos, I read blogs. Did it take time? Absolutely. Absolutely. I spent hours on a Saturday watching videos, reading shit, and it wasn't all that interesting. It was not all that interesting to figure out how to start a podcast. But I knew that I wanted to start a podcast. I knew that that's what I wanted, right? So I started to go through the steps, and I found this hosting site that I needed. And I was like, okay, great. I understand, I'm not like overly tech savvy, but I'm tech savvy enough to be able to, record and produce a podcast on my own. And so I was like at the final stages where I needed to set up this this hosting site, right? And it cost $5 for like the lowest option. I didn't have $5 in my bank account, guys. I had maybe $0. Very possible I had a negative balance. I'm just being totally honest. And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? I really want to start this podcast, and I'm pretty sure I have a negative balance. What am I going to do? Right? So I was like, I bet there's a free coupon code out there. There's free coupon codes for everything out there. If if you're resourceful enough. So I Googled free coupon code for this website. There was a free coupon code. And so I got the free coupon code, and I was like, at least I know that I have a month where I have, amount like X number or like, whatever storage space. And then I was able to start the podcast, and I was pumped, and I did it. But like, it would have been so easy to be like, I don't know how to start a podcast. Well, guess I won't do a podcast. Other people have assistants who do this shit. I didn't have the money for an assistant at the time. Well, guess I can't do a podcast. Fuck, it's going to cost $5. I don't have $5. Well, guess I can't do a podcast. No, I was like, I want to record a podcast. I want to start a podcast. Motherfucker, I'm going to start a podcast. And then I started in October, and it's been going strong ever since then. Right? And there's like a bajillion times that this happens. How I started my business. My challenge pack was $180. The only money I had was an almost maxed out credit card. And I was like, well, I want to start my business. This is what I want. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if it's actually what I want, but I know that I won't know unless I try it. So I put my challenge pack on an almost maxed out credit card, knowing that if I didn't earn money, if I didn't figure it out, then I wouldn't be able to afford my business fees the next month. But I earned enough money. I earned more than enough money, right? So, but it's because I'm fucking resourceful. And I cannot tell you how many people say, I can't do fill in the blank excuse because fill in the blank excuse. And we're both here to call you out on your shit and say, it's bullshit. It's a complete bullshit excuse. If you have access to a phone, access to internet, and you all have the same number of hours, it is possible.
I mean, let me take it back even further. Before Google, before the original G, before Google dominated the search engine space and became synonymous with searching for shit. Okay? Before that. We have had public libraries just about since the beginning of time. Like, literally. Go back to ancient Egypt, libraries were a thing. Okay? Like, they were a thing. This has been around for a long time. Your public library, for fucking free, will give you a card where you can take out a ridiculous amount of books that you can't even read in the time frame they give you. For you to learn literally anything you want. For free. Anything. Business, self-help, cooking, children, coloring, painting, marriage, sex, aliens, history, you fucking name it, the library has a book about it. And in the times in my life where I really struggled, and one of those times was when I first moved here. I moved to Atlanta 4 years ago. I had about $8,000 in my bank account, no job lined up. My license hadn't even been approved. I miraculously manifested an apartment. And I moved away from my family again for the second time. And I was in a brand new relationship, and it was all very exciting, except it was crazy overwhelming. And I didn't really realize how intense that period of my life would be until I got here. And then I was dealing with the after effects of that transition here. One of the first things I did was I went down to the library. I got a library card, and I went through the self-help shelf and picked out gems. Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, people who are literally some of the most gifted human beings who have ever shared wisdom on this planet, who know about life, who know about struggle, who can teach you for free how to become the version of yourself that you want to become. And I read everything. I'd walk out with 10 books and return them all read. I'd come back for more and back for more. I started picking up financial books. That's when I started picking up different systems for organizing my finances and learning about money, because I knew shit about money because my parents were poor and I didn't know anything. They didn't know anything. Struggle was all they knew, and I had to teach myself. I had to educate myself reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which, by the way, I got at the library, and other books by people like Dave Ramsey, which, by the way, I got at the library, to teach me about money, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know. I didn't have a background at all. No one taught me shit about it. And so I would just spend it all and never have any savings and never have any investments. And that was my life. It was a cycle. And then a lot of us are stuck there. Okay. I taught myself for free how to fix that in my life. Okay. Without even the internet, which is 10,000 times faster and better than that system of a library. But all I needed was access to a library card in a library. And I was able to teach myself. I have taught myself hundreds upon hundreds of hours worth of material that I needed for my life from a freaking library for free. I've taught myself. The amount of education I've received from that resource is crazy. I have fully taken advantage of it. Now, add the internet to that, and it's absolutely absurd. It's absurd the amount of access that we have to information. It is so undervalued, as Gary Vee says constantly. It is so undervalued. It is so looked over. And it's like with business, the example he gives, which I love, he's like, people go to medical school for years to become doctors. And they go, become teachers and bachelors, masters, years of education. Then you start an online business, whether it's whatever kind of business it is, and you just decide you're going to run a business without knowing shit about the online space, or shit about social media, or shit about how you actually run an online business. You don't take time to educate yourself. You don't take your resources that are free and plentiful and use them. But you expect to have a massive return somehow in the mix. And this conversation is so pertinent to all facets of our lives, whether you're a business owner or you're not, or you're just trying to live your best life, or you're separating from an abusive relationship, or whatever the current trajectory of your life is right now. Understand that your capacity to learn beyond what you know now is absolutely infinite in this day and age. It is completely infinite, and it is all immediately accessible to you in seconds worth of time. And the only thing that is keeping you from having the answers you want is you. Your lack of desire to do the work. Whether it's the research, the reading the article, the going to the library, whatever that is, it's you. You are the only impediment to your movement forward. You do not lack the resources to move forward. That is the myth. And that is the greatest myth that has in fact held us back tremendously from being who we could be, is this belief that we don't have something, we're missing something, we're lacking something, etc., etc.
Yeah, all of that. The other thing that came up when Shakti was talking was, because she talked about having a stack of 10 books. And I know that there's people out there that are like, I don't have time to read, or I'm not a fast reader, or blah, 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 blah. I am someone, I enjoy reading, but I do find my mind, even though I meditate every day, my mind struggles to focus on a book, right? And even though I'm a visual learner, I actually prefer to listen. Well, I don't know about all the libraries where you guys are, but I know for sure the library in Chicago, you can get audiobooks.
Yeah.
And I know that in Atlanta too.
Audiobook,
yeah.
too.
You know,
they have an app, guys. There's even an app now for audiobooks. You literally download an app on your phone and you can get books on your app like a library shelf. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then there's podcasts, right? The other excuse that comes up all the time is time, right? Well, which I was just talking about, but time, like, so when do we listen? When do we listen? Shakti listens while she drives. She listens while she drives all the time. I listen, and I think Shakti does too, while we're working out. I listen while I'm cooking. Yep. I listen while I'm working. I listen while I'm cleaning, although I don't really clean much here because it's fucking Airbnb. But, you know, like, I listen when I don't need to be, like, super focused on whatever task I'm doing, right? I'm listening all the time. And then the other example that Gary Vee gave that I'm just like, God, it is so fucking true, right? He's like, guys, there's a section on Craigslist called free. There's a free section. There is a free section on.
It's called.
It is. It's called free. You can, and people just give shit away, right? So you can take the shit for free and then sell the shit and make money for no cost. Like, you just pick up the shit and then you sell it. That's it. But the reason people don't do that is because you have the excuse of time and you think you're too good for that. It's not sexy. It's not sexy to go pick up free shit and sell it for money because you need $20. But you know what? Do you know how I funded the original leaving Chicago? I sold my entire goddamn apartment. I left Chicago with only a couple $100 in my bank account, but the only reason I was able to make that work was because I was fucking resourceful, and things that most people would give to Goodwill or give to Salvation Army, I was listening on the Facebook Marketplace, which is free. I was listening on eBay. I was looking up apps like Let Go, and I was listing on Let Go, and I was selling random shit for like $20. It was the easiest money I ever made. Yep. Ever. And I was like, God, I wish I had a whole nother apartment worth of stuff again. Because I can
sell more
shit.
I
can sell that shit. But how many things, and you know what? Fuck it. You don't even have to go to Craigslist, you guys. I know you have clutter sitting in your house right now that you're not even fucking using that you can sell. Yep. So whatever, however many times you wanted to do that thing, you wanted to start that business, you wanted to hire that coach, you wanted to, you know, enroll your child in something, and you say, I can't because I can't afford it. It's a bullshit excuse. Take something from your house that you're not using and sell it. Simple.
Yep. That. I've also done that. That's how I moved to Miami, is I sold my entire apartment to my best friend who bought all my furniture. And then she had an apartment to furnish, so I was like, here you go. Sold all my shit, moved.
Yep.
I kind of did something similar when I moved up here. I sold a lot of stuff. I worked a lot. Y'all, I hustled. I have worked 3 jobs consistently pretty much my entire adult life, from the time that I was like in my early 20s. I have been working 3 jobs. I was massage therapist in 2 different locations. I was also running coffee shops on the weekend. I was also doing massage with a PT, cosmetic surgeon, doing house calls. I did so much work to be able to move back to Miami, to be able to move to Atlanta, to be able to have reserves. Right now with my online business, it's my 4th business that I've ever launched, and I've had to learn the whole thing. I didn't know anything about the online business space, and I'm still such a neophyte. This is my 3rd year in business, and I'm like just learning all these really incredible things that I didn't really explore before. And here's the thing that Gary also talks about that is just so important. And when he said it today in a video I was watching, I was like, God damn it, you're so right. You need to have the humility to be a student. You have to have the humility to say, I don't know how to do XYZ, but I can figure it out. And I'm going to do the unsexy shit, which is research, maybe for hours, with no perspective on ROI at all, just because I don't know and I need to know. And you can figure it out. You can. But we are very arrogant And arrogance is not a word I really use for myself. But as I was listening to him talk, I was like, you know what? I have been kind of arrogant. I've been arrogant in imagining that I can run this kind of digital business and not really deeply know the foundations of what I'm doing, or how to create. You know, I say one of my core values, like Anne, is impact, and I'm not doing shit to learn about impact. I'm not really knowing how to increase my impact. What does that say about me? You know, like, that's kind of arrogant for me to imagine that I don't need to be a student because I've been doing this for 3 years. So suddenly I know something. I'm like, no, I actually don't. I need to learn a lot more. You know, like, that's the thing, is I feel like we're so afraid of being humble. We're so afraid of being students. We're so afraid of having beginner's mind. We just want to always pretend like we know everything, because, like, if we know anything, we're somehow impenetrable. And that's like, what is even happening with that mentality? I feel like that mentality is the literal worst.
Well, and Shakti and I see a lot. So she and I are both coaches, and we enrolled coaches onto our team. We're on the same team. And we see a lot of coaches quit because it didn't work for me. No, you didn't work it. You didn't work it. And the thing is, when you listen to someone like Gary Vee, and I've had to definitely eat some humble pie recently. I was reaching out to Shakti, and I was like, the fact that I have a desire to have a multi-million-dollar business, and I think I don't need to educate myself on social media, is kind of embarrassing. Because here's the thing, right? When you start an online business, you're like, I know what I'm doing. I scroll through Facebook. No, that's not a fucking business. You're not making money as you're scrolling through Facebook.
That's the beginning of the business, but that's not the whole alphabet. That's like, I know letter A, got it. You know, like, I learned my alphabet. You're like, no, bitch, you know the letter A.
Right.
There's a lot more after that.
You have to be intentional. If you're building an online business, doesn't matter if you're in network marketing or not. If you're building an online business, you have to be intentional. If you have a brick and mortar business, you have to figure out how the fuck to advertise and market, right? It's not like you have a brick and mortar business and you're like, people just magically know I exist, you know? And if you own a brick and mortar business, it costs a lot of money to start it and quit. Like, I guarantee you, I haven't had a brick and mortar, so I'm going to let Shakti talk about this. But right, but I can guarantee that if you had a for all of you who have quit an online business at some point in time, I guarantee that if you had a brick and mortar business, you wouldn't just flippantly, like, quit in the way that you quit because shit got hard with your online business.
Yep. It's a very different, like I said, this is my 4th business, and it's my first digital business. And I will tell you guys that having a brick and mortar business, and what we mean by that is an establishment, like a physical location where people go to you, like a physical office, people go to you, or, you know, in my case, my first business was a co-op it was a coffee shop. It was a local coffee tea shop, and that got sort of swept out from under us because of some problems that the building owners were experiencing that we were not communicated. And so because we were unaware of what was going on, we lost everything. Every investment, time investment, financial investment that had been made in that project, it was almost completely converted into the space for opening was lost. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of hours and dollars that got destroyed. And that was a huge loss for the primary financial investors and for the rest of us who had put in so much time and effort and just, like, thinking of marketing and starting to spread the word and creating, you know. And I was 21 when that happened, and it was a hard hit. It was a pretty eye-opening experience to experience that level of loss, and after you've invested so much. But what that did for me was prepare me for the mindset of an entrepreneur. For understanding that sometimes that's going to happen. You're going to start something and you're going to quit. You're going to not see it through for whatever reason, circumstances within your control, circumstances outside of your control. But that doesn't mean that's time lost. That's experience invested. And it gives you a platform from which to revisit and to revisit and to revisit. And after that, I had an office where I did psychic readings and I did classes and seminars, and I did that for a year. And it was obviously more successful than my coffee shop that never got off the ground. But it wasn't quite what I wanted either. But it did serve a lot of people, and it was really impactful. And the people who were a part of it are on this video, and a lot of them. And remember that time, and it was a really precious learning experience as well. And it cost a lot of money to stay open and to facilitate, a lot more money than I was bringing in at the time with my business. And when I closed the doors of that to go to massage school, that was hard to close that and to board up that business and then go into another world where I was learning an entirely new skill set to kind of launch myself all over again. And so I've had a lot of experience with starting over and learning a new skill set and then starting a business with massage and starting a mobile business with massage and all that entailed. And I will tell you that every time the investment of time and energy to learn the skill is high, every time. Because when you start something, you have no idea what you're doing. You don't know the market. You just have a passion for it. You just have an interest for it. You're just curious about it. But you don't actually know what it is or what it takes. Once you start, then comes a period of time where you become a student and you become absorbed in learning the actual business. And then you decide how far your tenacity is going to take you. Because what I learned in this digital business, which is the longest successful open business that I have had, I've learned about tenacity for real. And I've learned that nobody is handed more tenacity than anybody else. And it's all about the decisions that you make on a daily basis. That is it. You don't have to be super smart or super this or super that. If you can be resourceful, use your resources, and continuously renew your tenacity, you can be insanely successful. But those are two things that people undermine a lot. They undermine the resources available to them and they undermine their own tenacity. They do not consider those two to be as significant as they are. And because people overlook them, there's only a very small percentage of people doing what you wish you could do right now. Very small percentage of people sitting at that peak that you wish you could sit at right now. Because they did not underestimate those two things, and you did. That's the only difference. Literally. Just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, when you're talking about the digital business, the online business, and I was just reflecting on how many coaches I've worked with who have quit, I quit. I quit 3.5 years in. Like, I'll call myself out. I quit, right? I didn't quit business overall. I was still a coach. I was just doing my own thing. And then I realized that I really wanted to come back to network marketing for multiple reasons. But I look at coaches who I've worked with who quit, specifically the coaches that quit under the year mark, like within the first year. And they say, like, well, I didn't make money, or I didn't have success, or I didn't whatever. And I look at the fact that Shakti's been in it for almost 3 years. I've been in business, an online business, whether it was with Beachbody or my own, now back with Beachbody. But I've been in the online business space for almost 5 years. And the fact that anyone thinks that they deserve success in the first year without, like, you would have to really fucking outwork us. Like, we work really, really, really hard. We do. Like, we're really diligent about everything we do. It would take a very specific person to outwork us in order to see the success that we've had in under a year. And so it is pretty arrogant, right? That anyone would think, well, I don't have to put in that kind of work. And it's not about the hustle, guys, but the internal work. The fact that you would think, any of you on here, maybe this is speaking to you, the fact that any of you would think that you didn't have to do the internal work, or you didn't have to be consistent, or you didn't have to be resourceful, but yet you want to have a successful business in less time, it's pretty fucking arrogant.
Yeah, I mean, That's like being like, I want to do surgery, but I don't want to go to medical school. Can I do that? No.
You can't just cut someone open. Like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
That's illegal. That's murder. So we are not, that's not the same thing as surgery. That's just called murder. So, okay, so like understand that we, you know, and she's so right. Like when coaches quit under a year, especially when they're seeing success, I'm like, what is going on? Like what's happening in here? And I always know it's a mindset thing because I've threatened to quit like 5 times. I've been like, fuck this, I'm gonna quit. And it's always because I hit a personal wall. It's always because I rub up against an edge of mine where I have to grow. Either I have to become more resourceful, or I have to become more introspective, or I have to become more self-aware, or I have to grow to fill the britches that I claim I want. Something has to happen different than what it is now. And I rub up against that and I'm uncomfortable. And now I'm like, it's the fault of the business. Better quit. Because it's so much easier to blame something outside of ourselves and say it's that thing, it's the reason that I am uncomfortable, therefore I'm going to end this thing and then I will not be uncomfortable anymore, which is one of the biggest lies in the world. Because what ends up happening is you're like comfortable for like 5 seconds and then that discomfort shows up in another trigger somewhere fucking else. And every time that I have taken responsibility for that and used my resources, my inner resources, my external resources, and moved through whatever that trigger is, I always grow. And it always pays me back in a massive way. And then I always re-fall in love and I find new sense of purpose and I find new sense of fulfillment. And then I move forward and I grow more and I grow more. This year has been an insanely successful year for my business. My 3rd year has been wildly successful. I have quadrupled my numbers in last year alone. And it's, you know, this is a cool thing about network marketing is that your growth is pretty disproportionate. I mean, you can grow really fast over a series of time when you compound the effect. So the first year you might not see shit. Like I didn't really see shit. The second year I was kind of seeing shit. But the 3rd year it was like triple down, right? Because of all the work I did the first 2 years. Because of my resources and my moving through triggers and my learning and applying. And then now this year has been massive. And I imagine my 4th year is going to be like insane, you know, out of the stratosphere because everything compounds and you just kind of add on and add on. But this is the life of someone who takes full advantage, not just of my external resources, my free books, my audiobooks, my podcasts, my mentors, my friends, my whatever, but also someone who I wake up diligently every single day and meditate for a minimum of 26 minutes. I've done lately 45. It's been 45 minutes every single morning. And I do not let up. To me, that's like harvesting gems. I spend the first like hour of my morning just harvesting internal gems, harvesting internal resources. So that when I go out into my day and I participate with my day, I'm participating from the framework of everything that I've harvested, right? And that's a way of using internal resources. Then you have your external resources, which is the internet and books and the library and podcasts and everything else. That's external resources. But you have both, and you need both to grow and have success in your life. So neglecting either or both is massively a disservice to you, especially in a day and age where you are having books landing in a fucking device that is this big, spoken to you. You don't even have to freaking work to learn. You just by osmosis, you become better. Like, I'm a mom. I drive my toddler 30 minutes every day to a private school and back. And you know what I do during that time? Learn. I could be pissed that I have to drive 30 minutes to the private school I chose to take his ass to because I'm bougie as fuck like that. Or I could be like, I'm going to learn this whole drive. I'm going to learn for a full hour of my morning there and back. I'm going to learn some shit. And I take advantage of it. And I read books like this. And then people are like, girl, you're always like on it. You're on fire. You're slaying. What the fuck is up? Well, I fucking use my resources all day. All day. Morning, noon, and night. I don't fucking stop. That's why.
Part of being resourceful also is being reflective. Being reflective and honest with yourself about what resources am I not using? What internal resources am I not using, and what external resources am I not using? And it ties right into radical responsibility, you know, and like Shakti was talking about, taking responsibility for your fucking life. And I'm going to talk about two different things here, but when it comes to reflecting on your life and all of that, like, you know, I, like Shakti, meditate every single morning. However, I noticed that in my life, if I got out of bed and I didn't meditate immediately, it was too easy to check my phone. It was too easy to quickly respond to a text message before showing up for myself, right? And then before I knew it, I was like, what the fuck? 30 minutes have passed by, and I would find myself getting pissed off at myself, right? Because, oh, my morning is slipping away from me as if I had no control over it, right? But this is like going into the victim mentality. So I had to reflect and be like, how can I take control back of my morning? Well, I can meditate before I get my ass out of bed, right? So now that's what I've implemented. Before I feed the cats even, I stay in bed and I meditate first, and then I leave. Because then at least I know that a third of my morning routine is done. And the other thing, as far as taking radical responsibility, one of my favorite things that I heard in a Gary Vee video was, he was like, I take full responsibility for everything. Everything is my fault. Everything is my fault. He's like, I can tell you that if I got hit by a car, I'd be like, well, because I shouldn't have left the house that early.
God, I shouldn't have left the house that fucking early.
And the thing is, like, when you take radical responsibility of your life, then you have the power to change whatever it is that you want to change. But too many of you are giving your power away to your spouse. You're giving your power away to your children. You're giving power away to time, your day, money, your job, your boss, your friends, your health, whatever. Take your fucking power back. You're the one in control.
And it doesn't even matter if it's right or wrong, you guys. The whole point is just to take responsibility. It doesn't matter if it wasn't your fault. It doesn't matter if the other person was wrong. It doesn't matter if. That doesn't matter. If you just adopt radical responsibility, you will blow your own minds. In fact, I challenge you for a week to do this. Every time something goes fucking sideways, just be like, how can I take responsibility for this? Where's my role? How did I create this? How did I actively participate in this? And what that does is it switches your brain. The reason you do this is it switches your brain to like solution oriented. It switches your brain to how can I improve this? Instead of switching your brain into I am a victim. That's what it does. So the reason you take radical responsibility is not because everything is necessarily your fault or in fact your sole responsibility. The reason you choose to do that is because it makes your brain think differently. It activates a different component of your brain, which then puts you in the driver's seat, able to make different decisions and to respond differently. That's the magic behind taking radical responsibility for your life. It makes you see things differently, which activates different parts of your brain, and it literally makes you be different as you're engaging in the world around you. That's what's so brilliant about it. Like 100% genius.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know that I have anything else to say. I mean,
there's always so many topics in one because that's how life is.
Well, because when you were talking about radical responsibility, I mean, what came up for me also was gratitude, the practice of gratitude. You know, if you really want to shift your mindset, implement a gratitude practice. And
that's an internal resource, by the way, you guys. Gratitude practice is considered an internal resource.
Right. One thing that I started implementing again is an evening gratitude practice. So every single night before I go to bed, I pull my journal's on my nightstand, and I pull out my journal. I write it to God. That resonates with me. If it doesn't resonate to you, like, pick something. Just write a list. I don't care. But I write a letter to God, and I reflect on my day, and I only pick out all the amazing things that happened. I don't care if you think it was a shitty day, something positive happened. It could be the fact that you're still alive. It could be the fact that you have a bed. When I was going through really shitty stuff, it was like I was grateful when I had food, to be quite honest, you know? I was grateful that I had blankets. I was grateful that I was traveling with my cats, you know, just like the most random shit, not random, but the most basic shit, right? And now, like, I'm able to really pick out things that I'm like really genuinely grateful for. Like, really, really, I just feel it, how grateful I am. And then the other thing that I've started doing, which has been really powerful, is, and it's kind of a manifesting practice, but, you know, a lot of times we set intentions for things we want to create, manifest, whatever, and then we get so stuck on it, right? And if it doesn't happen, we think we somehow fucked up the process, right? I'm doing it just to play, just for fun, to see, like, what can I create? What can I create the next day that, like, that would be really cool if it happened, right? And so the first day I did it, because this is like more of a recent thing, the first day I did it, I just wrote a little, you know, I intend to manifest, I think it was like $100 or more. And like that was pretty much it, right? I mean, it was very basic. It was like a couple sentences. I said, you know, I want it to come in the, like, of the highest good, and that I was surrendering and releasing the how, right? And that was it. And then the next, when I put within the next 24 hours, and then I kind of time stamped it in my journal. So the next day, it's, I kid you not, like 15 minutes before the deadline, right? But I like wasn't even really thinking about it. I was sitting here writing, working on my book, and completely out of the blue, a client pays off their invoice of $2,200. And I was like, well, look at that. That was more than $100. And so I did it again the next day, right? And I set the intention for $500. And in the next 24 hours, nothing happened. But what was different for me this time around doing this, as like that was different than in the past year, was that I was so detached from the outcome. I didn't care that $500 or more didn't come. I didn't beat myself up. I didn't think that something had gone wrong. What I told myself was something better must be on the way then. If I didn't receive $500 or more in the 24 hours that I set, something better must be on the way. So then I set another intention, and this is where I think a lot of times people get stuck, because you're like, oh, well, I better set the same intention for another for the $500 because it didn't happen. No, do something else. And if you find yourself getting stuck around money, then do something else. So the next intention I set was, I just wanted a positive surprise. Make sure you emphasize positive. Don't ask the universe to just surprise you.
Yes.
Do not ask for just a surprise from the universe. Gentle, positive, be specific. I said, I want a positive surprise. The very next, in the same thing, in the next 24 hours, put a timestamp on it. Within the next day, I received an email from someone who I had been thinking about reaching out to. Like, it's someone I've worked with previously. And I had every intention of reaching out to her this week. Haven't talked to her in years, like years. And I received an email from her, and she's like, I've been thinking about working with you for like the last couple of years, but I've been too chicken shit to.
You don't say.
Right. She's like, but I've been too chicken shit. So here I am. And I just started laughing, right? But those little things like bring me so much joy. And so it's like, play a game with the universe. Right? And you can be resourceful in that way. Like, play a game with the universe and just see what happens. Don't beat yourself up if something doesn't happen. Remind yourself that something better must be on the way. But just start small. You can even start with $5. You could start with a free coffee. You could start with whatever you want, right? But the more that you start to kind of build that up, the more faith you're going to have in the universe, God, spirit, source, whatever.
Amen. That's what I'm going to add to that. That's literally it. That's all I got.
Yeah. So be grateful. And it's funny, and I'm just kind of reflecting here, but years ago when I first started my online business, and this is kind of off topic, but it's on the topic of gratitude. When I started my online business, I was maybe like a year or so in, right? This was before my spiritual journey. I was married. Life was very different back then. And I remember my mentor like suggested that I pray, and I was like, I'm not the praying kind. I'm not gonna pray, and I didn't. But I did, for whatever reason, feel called to practice gratitude at night. I didn't write it down, but every single night before I would close my eyes, I would start to run through in my mind all the things that had happened that day that were positive. And my business started to explode. And I remember my mentor at the time, she wanted me to hop on a team call to talk about, like, what are you doing? What are you doing that your business is exploding? What are you doing that all of a sudden, like, you're hitting all your goals, like all these things? And I remember telling the team, I was like, I know this sounds really crazy, but the only thing that I can really pinpoint is the fact that every night I focus on gratitude. Like every night I run through a list of all the things I'm grateful for. And I can't explain, because I didn't know then, right? I was like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know why it happens. I had no fucking clue about law of attraction. Like that was years later. I just knew it worked. And then sometimes when things start to work, we forget about the things that we implemented to get us to where we are. So then we stop doing those things, right? And so then I think back to when I was in the worst situation of my life in Mississippi. I was not grateful for a damn thing. I wanted out of there. You know, I had been there long enough that all I could focus on was not being there. I had such resistance. And when you resist anything, it persists, right? So it just persisted and persisted and persisted. And my financial situation got worse and worse and worse and worse. And it was like, I knew I needed to be focusing on gratitude, but it was one of those situations where I was like, I was really struggling. You know, when I was crying myself to sleep every single night, it was hard to focus on gratitude, but I knew that I had to. And every single morning when I would wake up and the dread of the day would feel extremely heavy, right? We've all had those mornings where we wake up and go, fuck, I'm alive again, right? And I woke up with that dread, and I had to force myself to get out of that mindset. And as soon as I felt the dread, I would just say, this is going to be an amazing day. And I did not believe it for a second. Like, not for a second. I was like, ego was like, no, it's not. That's the dumbest thing you could ever say. And I was like, it's going to be an amazing day. And I tried to just focus on all the things I could be grateful for. And bit by bit by bit by bit, I began to like chisel my way out of this really shitty situation.
I was going to share that part of my evening practice has also been gratitude, and I purchased this law of attraction planner, which is phenomenal. And it has a daily and an evening kind of logging thing, and part of the evening is, you know, what did I appreciate today? What did I appreciate today? What did I do? How did I love myself today? That's another question. How did I love myself today? How did I love and give today towards others? What did I appreciate? What were my victories? And being able to reflect on those things, and then it has a final question of like, how can I improve for tomorrow? Just being able to take the time to answer those questions every single day has actually taught me a lot about myself, has shown me a lot about what I pay attention to, what I value, what I appreciate. And then in the morning, it has a section for what am I grateful or excited about today. So it kind of sets up your day with that frame of reference. But I really encourage you guys to either start a gratitude practice like what Anne described in a journal, or get a planner like that has that ability to help you kind of track that on a day-to-day basis. Because where your attention goes is where energy flows, always. That's the most basic definition of law of attraction, is wherever your focus is, all this energy is pouring in that direction and giving you more of that, because we live in a very responsive, inclusive universe. And it is constantly listening to everything that you're saying, and it just wants to give you more of it. And it doesn't know how to differentiate between the things that you say, things that you feel, things that you think. It is taking all of that into consideration and just handing you more of it. That means if you're constantly living in a place of stress, if you're being given more stress, more pain, more suffering, that's why people seem to get trapped in this loop of suffering, because of this. It doesn't know how to discriminate. It's only matching you vibrationally where you are. That's the only form of dialogue that it knows, like an echo.
Yep.
Okay? So what you do daily matters, because it shifts your frequency, and it allows you to start reverberating in a different way so that you can receive the corresponding vibration and frequency of that thing. So this is why we talk about what we talk about. This is the whole point of this podcast, is to help you guys understand how to change your frequency. And the topic of tonight, which is use your resources, is one of the primary ways that we apply to change our frequency on a daily basis, which is consuming resources externally and consuming resources internally that support the direction that we want to move in instead of the direction we don't want to move in. Okay? So stop consuming resources that are drama, gossip, shit talking, pain, suffering, horror films. Those are terrible for your psyche, by the way. If you are still watching them, I don't care how much you say you love them, they are infecting your psyche and it is really bad for you. Just FYI. Stop consuming things that are like penetrating your consciousness and making you feel more fearful, more anxious, more worried. Start doing the opposite. Okay, you have the power to choose what resources you're consuming, and you're doing it every day, whether you know it or not.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I know I've talked to a couple people recently who are going through really challenging times physically, really. And I haven't gone through challenging times physically lately. I have before, but the most challenging time I've personally gone through recently was financially, right? But it's the thing is, any area of your life that where it feels like shit is hitting the fan, your patterns are all the same. We've talked about this before. Your patterns are all the same. It's just that it feels worse in one area of your life because that's how the universe knows that you will pay attention. So for me, it's money. For other people who I've been talking to, it's been their health. And the thing is that the strategies that I used to transcend my financial situation are the same strategies used to transcend any area of your life. You just stop giving energy to it. And, I was telling a client the other day when she was again experiencing pain, and I was like, look, everything you're going through, although it's different on the surface, it's all the same. And when I knew that I had to stop giving energy to what I no longer wanted, you get so stuck in the contrast that you're like, I can't, how do I not pay attention to this contrast? You look the other way.
Yep.
You look the other way. And every single day I prayed and I meditated and I prayed and I meditated and I cried and I listened to personal development and I did anything I could do to not focus on what was not in my bank account. And
keyword every single day. I just want to emphasize.
Every day and all day. It was like I woke up, I was like, today's going to be an amazing day. And I'd focus on gratitude and immediately fear would hit me again. And I was like, well, that's not where I want to stay. So I immediately put in headphones and I had my phone in my back pocket and I was feeding the cats and I was making the coffee. And then I would sit and meditate for 40 minutes. And my mind, I hear all the time, like, but my mind won't stop. My mind didn't stop either. My mind was like, you have this bill, you have this bill, you have this bill. This is going to be overdrafted. All this shit is going on. And I was like, I'm not paying attention to it right now. Right. And so, and it was all day long. And I didn't get up from my morning routine until I felt some sense of peace. And I didn't go to bed until I felt some sense of peace. And I was so diligent about the thoughts that I was thinking. I had to write out my own thoughts, guys, because the vicious cycle of fear and anxiety and worry was so intense that I couldn't rely on myself to just think different thoughts. I had to write down, what do I want to be thinking? And even that was a challenge. That wasn't easy because it felt like fucking lies. But I was like, what do I want to be thinking on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis? And I would write it down and I would read it over and over and over and over and over again. And then I would pray and then I would meditate and then I would read this thought cycle over and over and over. And then I would get on a client call. My clients had no fucking clue what was going on at the time, But it was like, because I had no business charging any money if I wasn't taking care of myself in that way. I had to show up for them. That was my job. And I think that this is another thing that people don't realize, and going back to the whole business aspect, when you start a business, especially a service-based business, you have people that you have said you are going to help guide, support, mentor, whatever. That's a fucking responsibility. Do not take that lightly. Do not take that lightly that you told another human being that you would help guide, mentor, support, teach, whatever them. Don't take that lightly.
Amen. If you came here to be a light worker, do the shadow work.
Yep.
If you came here to be a light bearer, do your shadow work. You have no business being a light worker. You have no business doing that you are. You have no business telling other people you can help them through it if you won't move through your shadow. You've got no foothold. Because you don't know. It's that simple.
Yep. Yeah. Also goes, I'm just thinking about charging, right? People wanting to make X number of dollars, but they're not willing to do the internal work. People feel when you're out of integrity, guys.
Yeah, dude, energy, you can't fake that shit. You cannot fake. And seeing someone through a video screen, not even anywhere near them, you can feel palpably the level of integrity that someone does or does not have, level of power that someone carries or does not carry, level of clarity, wisdom, connection, palpable. None of that can be faked. So if you're wondering why something isn't working in your life, or you're not making the income you want to make, why the business isn't working, sounds like it's time to harvest some internal gems.
Yep. That's what we have for you guys tonight. I think that's a powerful way to end. Definitely reflect on that shit. Yep. All right, guys. I know we had some people hopping on late. So what we said at the very beginning is we are now rewarding you guys ultimately for sharing this out, because as we both have a desire to impact on a very large scale, we would like more people to hear our message. So if you shared, we're going to each choose someone from the list of people who shared. Shakti's going to do a mini reading. I'm going to offer a free 30-minute mindset call, and we're going to continue to do this each week to reward you guys and thank you ultimately for showing up.
Yes.
For showing up and for sharing our message. So thank you guys so much for hopping on tonight.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.